Today, I'm sharing how we have been going about planning high school for my 3 homeschool high school students. I currently have 2 kids going into 10th grade and a child going into 9th grade as well. And then I was homeschooled as well, so I got the experience of going through this as a student as well as a teacher. One of the things I know, having gone through this, is that it can be very easy to stress a lot about the graduation requirements and post high school materials, whether that's college or a technical school or a job or whatever it might be. And we can end up focusing so much on the future that we really miss out on the sweet opportunities that are right in front of us. So today, I want to share with you guys the few steps that I go through to help plan not just the academic aspect of it, but also the relational and the skill building aspect that we have with our kids. In order to make sure we keep this balance, we want to start with the first step of looking at our values and our vision. What is it that you want your child to know, to do, to be character-wise at the end of graduation? Working backwards is always the best way to go, because if you wait until high school, at the end of high school, and you're like, oh my goodness, I really wanted them to make sure they had good financial literacy skills, but I never planned for that. Now all of a sudden you're cramming a bunch of stuff in those last few months when you are focused a little bit more on what's happening after school. So take the opportunity, sit down, physically write out, what is it that you would like to see your child be able to be good at, or to know, or to be equipped for after high school? I will tell you, this is not the place for graduation requirements. I actually would recommend, if you haven't already, don't even look at any graduation requirements when making this list. This is just your personal list of what information you would like your child to have, or what skills you want them to learn. So some of the ones for us that were very, very important for us is when my kids left, I wanted them to be able to have a strong biblical worldview. I wanted them to be very grounded in Christ and to know who they are and whose they are. I wanted them to be good at communication. This means public speaking. I wanted them to be able to make logical arguments and to understand truth from lies. Another big thing that was really important to me personally was having service hours. I wanted my kids to be very intentional about serving in their community. It is very easy in this age and stage for them to be focused again on their future and their plans, and not to be looking around at the world around them. So I wanted to be intentional about that, regardless of whether it was a requirement or not according to our state. I wanted them to be intentional about serving. They already serve a lot in our church. That's something that we've just kind of ingrained into our family culture. So what I wanted to also add to that during these high school years was a focus of serving in the community. So now that you've taken the time to write down your particular values and vision, and of course your spouse as well, you want to look at your actual state requirements. This is incredibly important, not only to make sure that you are compliant, but also to make sure you're making intentional choices. So what I mean by this is you want to look up your state laws. You can do this by going to hslda.org, clicking on the map of your state, and it will spell out for you any state laws that you have. But with many states, they don't have specific graduation requirements. So for our state in Kansas, we do not have any specific requirements when it comes to graduation. So instead, I went and I searched up, what are the public schools requirements for graduation? Now you might be thinking, Katie, I don't want my kids to go to public school. That was the reason why I chose this path for them in the first place. Who cares what the public school is doing? But here's why I think this is important to look up and at least have this information in front of you. Most of the kids in your state are going to be coming from that kind of education, and those are the things they're going to have on their list. Usually also they make sure to have those line up with many of the colleges in your area as far as their admission requirements. So I wanted to go through that list of all the things that were required for Kansas graduates to see what I wanted to include or not. Yes, I can omit a class that I feel like is completely unnecessary or unimportant. I want to make sure that I was making an intentional choice with that, of saying, oh, I feel like this is unnecessary, so I'm not going to do it, instead of getting to the end and going, oh shoot, that was necessary and I forgot it. Whether your child is interested in college after high school, I do recommend also looking up 1 to 3 colleges, usually at least one community college in your area, and then either a state college or a private school if your child is considering that. If they have specific ones they really have their heart set on already, definitely go look at the requirements for that as far as admission requirements. But even if they're not, just simply starting with community college and a state college can give you a good idea of what colleges are looking for. And again, to make sure you're making an intentional choice. I have several kids who have no intention of going to college, but my personal philosophy is I don't want to hold them back from that. A lot can change between now and the end of senior year, and I don't want to get to the point where we get to the end and realize, oh, they wanted to do that and now they're missing all of these different credits. I also know that even after they graduate high school, that can change, as my husband has just recently gone back to college after many, many years of being away from that. And so I don't want to just close off any opportunities for them. So I just like to have an idea of those requirements and to write those down as well. The third step is to include your students. This is a really important step. And honestly, you could definitely bring them in earlier in the process if you want to. But I think that it's really important that we bring our kids in on this process because this is their future. We want them to start taking ownership of these choices because they're the ones that are going to have to live ultimately with the consequences of these choices. With the way we did this is we sat down with a bunch of Post-it notes all over the table. I got little mini Post-it notes. I did not have a color coding system, probably could have, but we put a Post-it note on the table for each of the 4 years of high school. And we put one for 8th grade for a few of my kids because in some states you are able to complete a few high school credits in 8th grade. We did very few of those because they're not always accepted depending on the institution that you go to, but I did have that for some of my kiddos. So we had 4 Post-it notes for the most part, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And then we went through the list of requirements together. That printout that I had found of the state requirements and the information that I had of the things that my husband and I wanted our kids to go through, we went through that together with them. We talked through the different things. They're like, what is this? And so I would explain what this credit was. I explained what a credit is, right? That a full credit, I explained what a full credit is versus what a half credit is for them. And then we started placing things. Now there are some things that are just kind of already made for you. For instance, you have to do Algebra 1 before you do Algebra 2. That's just a sequential thing. So Algebra 1, if it wasn't already done in 8th grade, needs to be done in 9th grade. So we just placed that there. Some of the sciences require a prerequisite of certain maths. And so we lined those up, those things that are already set in place that don't have a lot of wiggle room. If your state requires 4 years of history, then you can go ahead and place 1 year of history in each one. It doesn't mean that you have to know exactly what you're going to do for history that year. Now they might say at least one of those years needs to be American history. At least one of those years needs to be US history. That kind of thing, you can place that on a card, but you don't have to know exactly what curriculum you're going to use at this point, and things can be flexible and change, but it's just a good idea to go ahead and lay out some of these things and kind of play with it. Anything that we didn't know where it went, we placed at the top of our Post-it notes, and then once we finished placing everything we knew we wanted to do, we focused mostly on making sure the next year was set, that we knew exactly what we were going to be doing this upcoming fall, and placed those items. And then we kind of selected ideas of where we could put the other ones that were left over. Does this mean that things are going to change? Yes. There's only 2 or 3 Post-it notes in the 12th grade year. The reason for this is sort of a catch-all. It's the opportunity and the ability for anything that we missed maybe or we didn't get to the way we thought we would, they can put that into that area. It also opens up more opportunity for them as they get later in the high school years for having jobs or, again, looking at future career opportunities or schooling options or things like that, or even dual enrollment at another college. This visual way of planning really helped my teens to get excited about the year, to really start thinking ahead to the future. Pro tip, I took a picture of all of us once we laid everything out and then put it into a Trello board so that it's in a digital format where I won't lose it and I can easily move things around as we need to. I could have done this all by myself, and honestly, when my boys had first gone into their freshman year, I did do a lot of this by myself and then realized that there was a big error there because there was a big disconnect for them between what I had planned and their personal opinions or their desires of what they wanted out of high school. So being able to bring them in this year and do that with all 3 of them at one time was such an awesome opportunity. The 4th step is to plan the whole experience. This is that part where we're gonna look at what are those things outside of academics that you want your child to have at the end of graduation. Again, this is a part that I would definitely be bringing the kids in on so that they can see, do they have a particular, maybe a natural desire or a talent in art? So maybe you wanna bring in a little bit more art for that child than you would for one of your other kids. We want to look at things like, what certifications do you want them to have? It's important to me that my kiddos have CPR certification, that they have gun safety certification, that they have driver's ed. I do want them to take some kind of course or get further education on the proper way of using AI, because I do think that's a big portion, because I do think that it's going to play a big part in their future. And so there are just some of those things that I feel like are not necessarily credits, and I'm not necessarily going to look to get credits for those, but just opportunities for them to learn for things that will help equip them for the future. The reason I do this step after we do our laying out our curriculum plan is because I want to have a realistic picture. I want to see, once we looked at what was required of them, how much time do we actually have for these extras, and where is a good place to plug in some of these things. Usually each year I try to have my kids, I've been doing this since they started middle school, having them try to take at least one class together. They usually do it with friends to learn a new skill. This could be CPR, this could be first aid, this could be any of those things, babysitting course or whatnot. I want them to be able to take those things, again, a lot of times during the summer or during school breaks, like spring break, where they can take those little breaks and opportunities to learn something new without having to worry about it being a full credit. The fifth and final aspect of this planning portion is to review, to reflect, and to switch things around. I know it's not another R, but I couldn't come up with another one. Review and reflect and adjust regularly. This is really, really, really important. It can become very easy to want to plan out absolutely everything for all 4 years and then feel like you're absolutely set to that. Your kids are going to change. Their interests are going to change. Maybe they're going to try a job. One of the things my mom did with us that was hugely helpful being a homeschool student was when we were interested in a career path, she went out of her way to find opportunities for us to shadow somebody in that field. So we got the opportunity to have real life experience. After doing that, some of us were even more set on doing that in the future. And others of us, like myself, were like, nope, I think I want to do something else. So that changed our 4-year plan. So I want you guys to be rest assured that things are going to change. If things go faster than what you planned, fantastic. If they go a little slower than what you planned, that is okay too. But we want to just have a general idea of where we are going so that we don't miss out on critical pieces. We don't live in a super stressed out life. And so our kids have that buy-in and they understand how shifting things around can open up more opportunities or can cause more frustrations in the future. If you want to see specifically what my kids are doing curriculum choice-wise, be sure to check out this playlist right here.